Good morning, everybody. Bonjour tout le monde. Welcome back to Games and Gutenberg. The Magic Pudding by Norman Lindsay. Second Slice. This book is available at gutenberg.org. The Society of Puddin' Owners were up bright and early next morning and had the billy on and tea made before 6 o'clock, which is the best part of the day, because the world has just had his face washed, and the air smells like Pear's soap. "Aha!" said Bill Barnacle, cutting up slices of the pudding. "This is what I call grand. Here we are, after a splendid night's sleep on dry leaves, having a smoking hot slice of steak and kidney for breakfast round the campfire. What could be more delightful?" "What indeed?" said Bunyip Bluegum, sipping tea. "Why, as I always say," said Bill, "if there's one thing more entrancing than sitting round a campfire in the evening, it's sitting around a campfire in the morning. No bed and blankets and breakfast tables for Bill Barnacle, for as I says in my breakfast ballad, oh, if there's anything better than lying on leaves, it's rising from leaves at dawning. If there's anything better than sleeping at eve, it's waking up in the morning. If there's anything better than campfire light, it's bright sunshine I'm waking. If there's anything better than pudding at night, it's pudding when day is breaking. If there's anything better than singing away while the stars are gaily shining, why, it's singing a song at the dawn of the day, I'm pudding for breakfast dining." There was a hearty round of applause at this song. For as Bunyip Bluegum remarked, singing at breakfast should certainly be more commonly indulged in, as it greatly tends to enliven what is, on most occasions, a somewhat dull proceeding. "One of the great advantages of being a professional puddin' owner," said Sam Sonoff, "is that songs at breakfast are always encouraged. None of the ordinary breakfast rules, such as scowling while eating and saying the porridge is as stiff as glue and the eggs are as tough as leather, are observed. Instead, songs, roars of laughter, and boisterous jests are the order of the day. For example, this sort of thing," added Sam, doing a rapid back flap and landing with a thump on Bill's head. As Bill was unprepared for this act of boisterous humor, his face was pushed into the pudding with great violence, and the gravy was splashed in his eye. "What do you mean, playing such bung-foodling tricks on a man at breakfast?" roared Bill. "What do you mean?" shouted the pudding. "Playing such food-bungling tricks on a pudding's being breakfast at?" "Breakfast humor, Bill, merely breakfast humor," said Sam hastily. "Humor's humor," shouted Bill, "but pudding in the whiskers is no joke." "Whiskers in the pudding is worse than pudding in the whiskers," shouted the pudding, standing up in his basin. "Observe the rules, Bill," said Sam hurriedly. "Boisterous humor at the breakfast table must be greeted with roars of laughter." "Do Jerusalem with the rules," shouted Bill. "Pushing a man's face into his own breakfast is beyond rules or reason, and deserves a punch and a gizzard." Seeing matters arriving at this unpromising situation, Bunyip Bluegum interposed by saying, "Rather than allow this happy occasion to be marred by unseemly recriminations, let us, while admitting that our admirable friend Sam may have unwittingly disturbed the composure of our admirable friend Bill at the expense of our admirable pudding's gravy, let us, I say, by the simple act of extending the hand of friendship, dispel in an instant these gathering clouds of disruption. In the words of the poem, then let the fist of friendship be kept for friendship's foes. Ne'er let that hand in anger land on friendship's holy nose." These fine sentiments at once dispelled Bill's anger. He shook hands warmly with Sam, wiped the gravy from his face, and resumed breakfast with every appearance of hearty good humor. The meal over, the breakfast things were put away in the bag. Sam and Bill took Puddin' between them, and all set off along the road, enlivening the way with song and story. Bill regaled them with portions of the Ballad of the Salt Junk Sarah, which is one of those songs that go on forever. Its great advantage, as Bill remarked, was that it hadn't got an ending. It didn't need a beginning, so you could start it anywhere. "As for instance," said Bill, as he roared out, "Oh, aboard the Salt Junk Sarah, rolling home across the line. The boatswain collared the captain's hat and threw it in the brine. Rolling home, rolling home, rolling home across the foam. The captain sat without a hat the whole way rolling home." Entertaining themselves in this way as they strolled along, they were presently arrested by shouts of "Fire! Fire!" and a fireman in a large helmet came bolting down the road, pulling a fire hose behind him. "Aha!" said Bill. "Now we shall have the awe-inspiring spectacle of a fire to entertain us." And, accosting the fireman, he demanded to know where the fire was. "The fact is," said the fireman, "that owing to the size of this helmet, I can't see where it is. But if you will kindly glance at the surrounding district, you'll see it somewhere." They glanced about, and sure enough, there was a fire burning in the next field. It was only a cowshed, certainly, but it was blazing very nicely and well worth looking at. "Fire," said Bill, "in the form of a common cowshed, is burning about northeast as the crow flies." "In that case," said the fireman, "I invite all present bravely to assist in putting it out. But," he added impressively, "if you'll take my advice, you'll shove that pudding in this hollow log and roll a stone again the end to keep him in. For if he gets too near the flames, he'll be cooked again and have his flavor ruined." "This is a very sensible feller," said Bill, and though Puddin' objected strongly, he was at once pushed into a log and securely fastened within with a large stone. How do you like to be shoved in a blooming log?" he shouted at Bill, "when you was burning with anxiety to see the fire?" But Bill said severely, "Be sensible, Albert. Fires is too dangerous to Puddin's flavors." No more time was lost in seizing the hose, and they set off with the greatest enthusiasm. For, as everyone knows, running with the reel is one of the grand joys of being a fireman. They had the hose fixed to a garden tap in no time, and soon were all hard at work putting out the fire. Of course, there was a great deal of smoke and shouting and getting tripped up by the hose, and it was by the merest chance Bunyip Bluegum glanced back in time to see the wombat in the act of stealing the pudding from the hollow log. "Treachery is at work!" he shouted. "Treachery!" roared Bill, and with one blow on the snout knocked the fireman endways on into the burning cinders, where his helmet fell off and exposed the countenance of that snouting scoundrel, the possum. The possum, of course, hadn't expected to have his disguise pierced so swiftly, and though he managed to scramble out of the fire in time to save his bacon, he was considerably singed down the back. "What a murderous attack!" he exclaimed. "Oh, what a brutal attempt to burn a man alive!" And as some hot cinders had got down his back, he gave a sharp yell and ran off, singeing and smoking. Bill, distracted with rage, ran after the possum, then changed his mind and ran after the wombat, so that, what with running first after one and then the other, they both had time to get clean away, and disappeared over the skyline. "I see it all," shouted Bill, casting himself down in despair. "Them low-puddin' thieves has borrowed a fireman's helmet, collared a hose, and set fire to a cowshed in order to lure us away from the puddin'." The whole thing's a low put-up job on our noble credulity, said Sam, casting himself down beside Bill. It's one of the most frightful things that's ever happened, said Bill. It's worse than treading on tacks with bare feet, said Sam. It's worse than being caught stealing fowls, said Bill. It's worse than being stood on by cows, said Sam. It's almost as bad as having an uncle called Aldobrantiphoscofornio, said Bill, and they both sang loudly. It's worse than weevils, worse than warts, it's worse than corns to bear. It's worse than having several quarts of treacle in your hair. It's worse than beetles in the soup. It's worse than crows to eat. It's worse than wearing small-sized boots upon your large-sized feet. It's worse than kerosene to booze. It's worse than ginger hair. It's worse than anything to lose. A pudding rich and rare. Bunyip Bluegum reproved this despondency, saying, Come, this is no time for giving ways to despair. Let us, rather, by the fortitude of our bearing, prove ourselves superior to this misfortune, and, with the energy of justly enraged men, pursue these malefactors, who have so richly deserved our vengeance. Arise! Bravely spoken, said Bill, immediately recovering from despair. The grass is green, the day is fair, the dandelions abound. Is this a time for sad despair and sitting on the ground? Our pudding in some darksome lair in iron chains is bound, while pudding snatchers on him fare and eat him by the pound. Let gloom give way to angry glare, let weak despair be drowned, let vengeance in its rage declare our pudding must be found. Then let's resolve to do and dare, let teeth with rage be ground, let voices to the heavens declare our pudding must be found. Those gallant words have fired our blood, said Sam, and they both shook hands with Bunyip to show that they were now prepared to follow the call of vengeance. In order to investigate this dastardly outrage, said Bunyip, we must become detectives and find a clue. We must find somebody who has seen a singed possum. Once traced to their lair, Mother Wit will suggest some means of rescuing our pudding. They set off at once, and after a brisk walk came to a small house with a signboard on it saying Henderson Hedgehog, Horticulturist. Henderson himself was in the garden, horticulturing a cabbage, and they asked him if he had chanced to see a singed possum that morning. What's that? What? Said Henderson Hedgehog, and when they had repeated the question, he said, You must speak up, I'm a trifle deaf. Have you seen a singed possum? Shouted Bill. I can't hear you, said Henderson. Have you seen a singed possum? Roared Bill. To be sure, said Henderson, but the turnips are backward. Turnips be stewed, yelled Bill in such a tremendous voice that he blew his own hat off. Have you seen a singed possum? Good season for water blossom, said Henderson. Well, yes, but a very poor season for carrots. A man might as well talk to a carrot as try and get some sense out of this runt of a feller, said Bill, disgusted. Come and see if we can't find someone that it won't bust a man's vocal cords getting information out of. They left Henderson to his horticulturing and walked on till they met a parrot who was a swagman, or a swagman who was a parrot. He must have been one or the other, if not both, for he had a bag, and a swag, and a beak, and a billy, and a thundering bad temper into the bargain. For the moment Bill asked him if he had met a singed possum, he shouted back, Me eat a singed possum? I wouldn't eat a possum if he was singed, roasted, boiled, or fried.
Not at. Met, shouted Bill. I said met a singed possum.
Why can't you speak plainly then? Said the parrot. Have you got a fill of tobacco on you?
He took out his pipe and scowled at Bill.
Here you are, said Bill. Cut a fill and answer the question.
All in good time,
said the parrot, and he added to Sam,
You got any tobacco?
Sam handed him a fill and he put it in his pocket.
You ain't got any tobacco,
he said scornfully to Bunyip Bluegum.
I can see that at a glance. You're one of the non-smoking sort, all fur and feathers.
Here, said Bill angrily. Enough with this beating around the bush. Answer the question.
Don't be impatient, said the parrot. Have you got a bit of tea and sugar on you?
Here's your tea and sugar, said Bill, handing a little of each out of the bag. And that's the last thing you get. Now, will you answer the question?
What question?
Asked the parrot. Have you seen a singed possum? Roared Bill.
No, I haven't,
said the parrot, and he actually had the insolence to laugh in Bill's face.
Of all the swivel-eyed, up-jumped, cross-grained sons of a cock-eyed tinker, exclaimed Bill, boiling with rage. If punching parrots on the beak wasn't too painful for pleasure, I'd land you a sock-dolliger on the muzzle that'd lay you out till Christmas. Come on, mates, he added. It's no use wasting time over this low-down, hook-nosed tobacco grabber.
And leaving the evil-minded parrot to pursue his evil-minded way, they hurried off in search of information. The next person they spied was a bandicoot carrying a watermelon. At a first glance, you would have thought it was merely a watermelon walking by itself, but a second glance would have shown you that the walking was being done by a small pair of legs attached to the watermelon. And a third glance would have disclosed that the legs were attached to a bandicoot. They shouted, "Hi, you with the melon!" to attract his attention, and set off running after him. And the bandicoot, being naturally of a terrified disposition, ran for all he was worth. He wasn't worth much as a runner, owing to the weight of the watermelon, and they caught up halfway across the field. Conceiving that his hour had come, the bandicoot gave a shrill squeak of terror and fell on his knees.
"Take me a watermelon," he gasped, "but spare me life." "Stuff and nonsense," said Bill. "We don't want your life. What we want is some information. Have you seen a singed possum about this morning?" "Singed possums, sir? Yes, sir, certainly, sir," gasped the bandicoot, trembling violently. "What?" exclaimed Bill. "Do you mean to say you have seen the singed possum?" "Singed possum, sir? Yes, sir," gulped the bandicoot. "Very plentiful, sir, this time of the year, sir, owing to the bushfire, sir." "Rubbish," roared Bill. "I don't believe he sees a singed possum at all." "No, sir," quavered the bandicoot. "Certainly not, sir. Wouldn't think of seeing singed possums if there was any objection, sir." "You're a poltroon," shouted Bill. "You're a slavering, quavering, melancholian nincompoop. There's no chance of getting information out of you than that out of a terrified turnip."
Leaving the bandicoot to pursue his quavering, melon-humping existence, they set off again, Bill giving way to some despondent expressions.
"As far as I can see," he said, "if we can't find something better than stone-deaf hedgehogs, peevish parrots, and funkin' bandicoots, we might as well give way to despair."
Bunyip Bluegum was forced to exert his finest oratory to inspire them to another frame of mind. "Let it never be said," he exclaimed, that the unconquerable hearts of puddin' owners quailed before a parrot, a hedgehog, or a bandicoot. Let hedgehogs deaf go delve and dig, immune from loudest howl. Let bandicoots lump melons big, let peevish parrots prowl. Shall puddin' owners bow the head at such affronts as these? No, no, march on by anger led, our puddin' to release. Let courage high resolve inflame, our captive pud to free. Our banner wave, our words proclaim, we march to victory. Bravely sung, exclaimed Bill, grasping Bunyip Bluegum by the hand, and they proceeded with expressions of the greatest courage and determination. As a reward for this renewed activity, they got some useful information from a rooster who was standing at his front gate looking up and down the road and wishing to heaven that somebody would come along for him to talk to. They got, in fact, a good deal more information than they asked for the rooster was one of those fine, upstanding, bumptious skites who love to talk all day, in the heartiest manner, to total strangers, while their wives do the washing. Singed a possum, he exclaimed, when they had put the usual question to him. Now, what an extraordinary thing that you should come along and ask me that question. What an astounding and incredible thing that you should actually use the word singed in a connection with the word possum. Though, mind you, the word I had in mind was not singed, but burning. And not possum, but feathers. Now, I'll tell you why. Only this morning, as I was standing here, I said to myself, somebody's been burning feathers. I called out at once to the wife. Fine woman, the wife, you'll meet her presently. Have you been burning feathers? No, says she. Well, said I, if you haven't been burning feathers, somebody else has. At the very moment that I'm repeating the words feathers and burning, you come along and repeat the words singed and possum. Instantly I called to mind that at the identical moment that I smelt something burning, I saw a possum passing this very gate, though whether he happened to be singed or not, I didn't inquire. Which way did he go? Inquired Bill excitedly. And now let me see, said the rooster. He went down the road, turned to the right, gave a jump and a howl, and set off in the direction of Watkin Wombat's summer residence. The very man we're after, shouted Bill, and bolted off down the road, followed by the others, without taking any notice of the rooster's request to wait a minute and be introduced to the wife. His wife may be all right, as said Bill as they ran, but what I say is, blow meeting a bloomin' old rooster's wife when you haven't got a year to waste listening to a bloomin' old rooster. They followed the rooster's directions with the utmost rapidity and came to a large hollow tree with a door in the side and a notice board nailed up which said, Watkin Wombat, Esquire, Summer Residence. The door was locked, but it was clear that the puddin' thieves were inside, because they heard the possum say peevishly, You're eating too much, and here's me most severely singed, not getting sufficient. And the wombat was heard to say, What you want is soap. But the possum said angrily, What I need is immense quantities of pudding. The avengers drew aside to hold a consultation. What's to be done? Said Bill. It's no use knocking, because they'd look through the keyhole and refuse to come out, and not being burglars, we can't bust the door in.
It seems to me that there's nothing for it but to give way to despair.
Never give way to despair while whiskers can be made from dry grass, said Bunyip Bluegum, and suiting the action to the word, he swiftly made a pair of fine mustaches out of dried grass and stuck them on with wattle gum. Now, lend me your hat, he said to Bill, and taking the hat he turned up the brim, dented in the top, and put it on. The bag is also required, he said to Sam, and taking that in his hand and turning his coat inside out, he stood before them completely disguised. You two, he said, must remain in hiding behind the tree. You will hear me knock, accost the ruffians, and hold them in conversation. The moment you hear me exclaim loudly, "Hey, presto, pots and pans," you will dart out and engage the villains at fisticuffs. The rest leave to me. Waiting till the others were hidden behind the tree, Bunyip rapped smartly on the door, which opened presently, and the wombat put his head out cautiously.
Have I the extreme pleasure of addressing Watkin Wombat Esquire?
He inquired Bunyip Bluegum with a bow. Of course, seeing a perfect stranger at the door, the wombat had no suspicions, and said at once,
Such is the name of him you see before you.
I have called to see you, said Bunyip, on a matter of business. The commodity which I vend is Poodle's patent pudding enlarger, samples of which I have in the bag. As a guarantee of good faith, we are giving samples of our famous enlarger away to all well-known pudding owners. The enlarger, one of the wonders of modern science, has but to be poured over the pudding with certain necessary incantations, and the pudding will be instantly enlarged to double its normal size. He took some sugar from the bag and held it up. I am now about to hand you some of this wonderful discovery, but, he added impressively, the operation of enlarging the pudding is a delicate one and must be performed in the open air. Produce your pudding, and I will at once apply Poodle's patent with marvelous effects.
Of course, it's understood that no charge is to be made, said the possum, hurrying out.
No charge whatever, said Bunyip Bluegum. So, on the principle of always getting something for nothing, as the wombat said, pudding was brought out and placed on the ground. Now, watch me closely, said Bunyip Bluegum. He sprinkled the pudding with sugar, made several passes with his hands, and pronounced these words, Who incantations utters, he generally mutters his gruesome blasts and bans. But I, you need not doubt it, prefer aloud to shout it, Hey presto, pots and pans. Out sprang Bill and Sam and set about the pudding thieves like a pair of windmills, giving them such a clip-clap clouting and a flip-flap flouting that, what with being punched and pounded and clipped and clapped, they had only enough breath left to give two shrieks of despair while scrambling back into Watkin Wombat's summer residence and banging the door behind them. The three friends had pudding secured in no time and shook hands all round, congratulating Bunyip Bluegum on the success of his plan.
Your noble acting, said Bill, has saved our pudding's life.
Them pudding thieves, said Sam, was children in your hands. We hear you, sang out the possum, and the wombat added, Oh, what deceit!
Enough for you two, shouted Bill. If we catch you sneaking after our pudding again, you'll get such a belting that you'll wish you was vegetarians. And now, said he, for a glorious reunion round the campfire.
And a glorious reunion they had, tucking into hot steak and kidney pudding and boiled jam roll, which, after the exertions of the day, went down, as Bill said, grand.
If them puddin' thieves ain't suffering the agonies of despair at this very moment, I'll eat my hat along with the pudding, said Bill, exultantly.
Indeed, said Bunyip Bluegum. The consciousness that our enemies are deservedly the victims of acute mental and physical anguish imparts, it must be admitted, an additional flavor to the admirable pudding.
Well spoken, said Bill admiringly, which I will say that for turning off a few well-chosen words, no parson in the land is the equal of yourself.
Your health, said Bunyip Bluegum. The singing that evening was particularly loud and prolonged, owing to the satisfaction they all felt at the recovery of their beloved puddin'. The puddin', who had got the sulks over Sam's remarks that 15 goes of steak and kidney were enough for any self-respecting man, protested against the singing, which, he said, disturbed his gravy.
More eating and more or less noise is my motto,
he said, and he called Bill a leather-headed old barrel organ for reproving him.
Albert is a spoiled child, I fear, said Bill, shoving him into the bag to keep him quiet, and without more ado, led off with, "Oh, aboard the Salt Junk Sarah, rolling home round the Horn, the bosun Captain knows for treating him with scorn. Rolling home, across the foam, the bosun goes with thumps and blows, the whole way rolling home."
"But," said Bill to Bunyip Bluegum, after about 15 verses of the Salt Junk Sarah,
"the superior skill, ingenuity, and daring with which you bested them pudding snatchers reminds me of a similar incident in Sam's youth, which I will now sing you. The incident, though similar as regards courage and daring, is completely different in regard to everything else, and is entitled The Penguin's Bride. The Penguin's Bride. 'Twas on the saucy soup tureen that Sam was foremast hand, when on the quarter deck was seen a maiding fit to be a queen, with her old uncle stand. And Sam at once was sunk all in passion deep and grand, but this here aged uncle, he was the Earl of Bunkle, and Sam a foremast hand. And Sam he chewed salt junk all day with grief forlorn, because the Earl of Bunkle, the lovely maiding's uncle, regarded him with scorn. When sailing by Barbado, the saucy soup tureen, before she could be stayed, went down in a tornado, and never more was seen. The passengers were sunk all beneath the raging wave, and the maiden and her uncle, the noble Earl of Bunkle, were saved by Sam the Brave. He saved the noble Bunkle by diving off the poop. The maiden in a funk all he saved along with uncle upon a chicken coop. And this here niece of Bunkle, when they got safe to land, for having saved her uncle, the noble Earl of Bunkle, she offered Sam her hand. And that old Bunkle uncle, for joy of his release, on Burgundy got drunk all day in Castle Bunkle, which hastened his decease. The lovely maiden Bunkle inherited the land, and now her aged uncle has gone. The Earl of Bunkle is Sam, the foremast hand. Of course, said Sam modestly, the song goes too far in saying as how I married the Earl's niece, because for one thing, I ain't a marrying man, and for another thing, what she really says to me when we got to land was, "You're a noble feller, and here's 5 shillings for you, and any time you happen to be round our way, just give a ring at the servant's bell, and there'll always be feed waiting for you in the kitchen."
However, you've got to have songs to fill in the time with, and when a feller's got a rotten word with like bunkhole to find rhymes for, there's no saying how a song will end. The exigencies of rhyme, said Bunyip Bluegum, may stand excused from a too strict insistence on verisimilitude, so that the general gaiety is thereby promoted. And now, he added, before retiring to rest, let us all join in song, and grasping each other's hands, they sang loudly the Puddin' Owner's Even Song. Let feeble feeders stoop to plates of oyster soup. Let pap engage the guns of age, the appetites that droop. We much prefer to chew a steak and kidney stew. Let yokels course appease their appetites with cheese. Let woman dream of cakes and cream. We scorn fal-lals like these. Our sterner sex extols the joy of boiled jam rolls. We scorn digestive pills. Give us the food that fills. Who bravely stuff themselves with duff may laugh at doctors' bills. For medicine partake of kidney stewed with steak. Then plight our faith anew, 3 puddin' owners true, who boldly claim in friendship's name the noble Irish stew. Hurrah, hurrah, hurroo. Thank you for joining Games and Gutenberg for The Magic Pudding, Second Slice by Norman Lindsay. Have a great rest of the day.